So my next guest on Chat with Anju, episode 8, is a dear friend and mentor, Sahil Mehta. Sahil is an entrepreneur, a keynote speaker. He teaches you how to effectively take charge of your life, step by step. That's the most important. Improve focus, develop strong emotional connections, perform at your physical best, and evolve your business by mastering the art of decluttering. So let me welcome Sahil Mehta. Hi,
Hi,
Sahil. How are you?
I'm great. Pleasure to be here.
Sahil, I have to say that there's a lot of changes in my life since I met you. Fortunately, we met at the Laughter Yoga event, which was great. But I initially, when I met you, I started off with the first part of the decluttering, which was the physical things in the house, the material things, and that really made me feel so much lighter and better. That was the first step. The second step I moved on to was the body level, which was giving up my sweeteners and going on to jaggery and things like that. And I have to share with you that I have made so many changes that I have actually lost 3 kilos.
Wow.
Yeah, and it all started off with the decluttering in mind. So it quite sunk into my system, and I'm really grateful for that. And that's why I wanted to actually talk further on the next two levels, which were very interesting for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people. The relationship and the mental side, especially now with the lockdown and the COVID.
First and foremost, it's wonderful to see that you've been getting positive results. I think the most important point here is that you took the first step and you were disciplined, you were committed, you were, and the results that I'm seeing are unbelievable. Just in a matter of a few months, just watching you evolve has been fantastic. So, bravo. Because it does take a lot of courage as well. We've been either staying alone and we're missing our loved ones, or we're staying with loved ones and we're spending so much more time with them. But all of us, or at least I, have, relationships where something is amiss. There's a strain, something is just not right, and it's kind of been churning and burning inside of me. So just to define, what does decluttering people mean? It doesn't mean getting rid of people. Yes, of course, there's some people that should not be there in your life. That's straightforward. I mean, if someone is constantly sucking you out of your energy, you have to question yourself and say, why is this person in my life? But let's say it is a family member, it's someone you work with. It's a situation that you cannot change. Or maybe it's very difficult to change. What do you do in that scenario? So it's all about removing the clutter between you and the other person, right? I mean,
Yeah.
how many times have we held on to things, and we're just carrying it wherever we go. And every time we see that person, all of a sudden, something gets triggered in our mind and we get emotional. Now, whether it's anger or frustration or jealousy or whatever emotion that's coming out of you, here's the thing. They are the puppet master, you are the puppet. Every time their name is mentioned, they enter your life, it triggers something in you. How about we get control back of our lives? A great analogy that was shared with me one time was, imagine yourself to be a combination of a horse and a horseman. Usually you're the horseman. You're pulling the reins, you're deciding which way the horse goes, you're deciding the speed, the direction. So you're in control. But what happens when your emotions go wild, when they go, out of control? All of a sudden you become the horse. Now, you don't have control over the speed, where it goes, what it does. How many times have you walked away from a situation going, oh my goodness, I can't believe I just did that, or I said that, right? That's because you were no longer in control and it was the horse that was in control. So what I'm going to share here is, how can we get control back? So normally what happens is someone says or does something, and then there's a reaction.
Yeah.
So you have an action and then you have a reaction. Now let's introduce one more step, which is pause between the action, right after the action. And let's be aware of what's going on in our body. Now, we can still be angry, we can still be frustrated. This is not about suppressing our emotions, but instead of reacting, you're now going to respond consciously. You're still in control. You're still the horseman and not the horse. So let's add that one step, which is pause. It's very, very powerful. And remember, Anju, it's not always about what we believe, right? I mean, we're very good at assuming. We're very good at completing something. So how many times have you read sentences, even when the grammar is wrong or the spelling is wrong, you're still able to read the sentence because your mind is able to complete the gaps or correct the errors based on experience or your learnings. But sometimes that is also our shortcoming. You might have said something to me, and now suddenly I've completed the gap. But it may not be what you have intended. I'm going to share a sentence with you that's 7 words long. Okay, listen to this one. I never said she stole my money. I repeat, I never said she stole my money. Now, the amazing thing about these 7 words is, depending on which one you emphasize, it has a different meaning. So the same sentence has 7 different meanings. Now, when I spoke it, and when you heard it, listening to the voice in your head, interpreting it, maybe you interpret it differently from what I shared.
Yeah.
So rather than assuming, which is really filling in the gaps, maybe a lazier approach, if you want to call it, because it's the least effort. How about I ask you and say, Anju, what did you mean when you said this? Or is this what you're saying? How about I clarify? Let's be curious. Let's ask questions.
Kind of rephrasing.
Absolutely. So by asking you more questions, I can understand fully what you mean. And remember, sometimes problems happen out of nothing. It's just miscommunication. I said left, you understood right. And that caused some friction between us.
Yeah.
And I could have easily said, Anju, did you understand? This is, and you could have also asked me if you didn't understand.
Yeah. Did I hear you right?
Yeah. I mean, I give a great example. Imagine we're standing in front of each other and I draw a big 6 on the ground. You're going to say it's a 9. I'm going to say it's a 6. We can argue all day. But in this particular case, we both happen to be right. But all we had to do was say, you know what? I'm going to try to understand it from the other person's perspective. Right? This is another tactic that we can do. So we talked about not assuming. Another one is understanding things from the other person's perspective. And people often ask me, they go, yeah, but it's tough, it's scary, it's confrontational. I don't really want to have that conversation. So here's something that I put together, framework, if you'd call it that. But before I talk about the framework, here's one thing that's very important. What is your state of mind when you enter that conversation with someone? When you want to have that really important, that scary, that fearful, whatever, however you describe it in your head, but how do you enter that conversation? You enter
sometimes we enter with our own perception, right?
Yeah, you enter with your own perception, but you also enter with fear sometimes. You enter with anger, right? Now tell me something, Anju. If you enter with a negative state of mind into any conversation, do you feel that the chances of a positive outcome are higher or lower?
Absolutely low.
So how about we enter the conversation with compassion, with empathy, with love? And so here's the framework that I'm talking about. Always make sure you have a private space, no distractions, because the last thing you want is people being uncomfortable opening up because of others who are there. You don't want others to be there. And definitely your phone needs to be away on silent or all your devices. First, share what is the objective of the conversation, right? Anju, I would like to have this conversation with you because I feel that our relationship has gone in the wrong direction and I'd love for it to get great again. So now I've set the tone. You understand that no matter what I say after that, the intention is to bring that closeness together and not to separate, right?
Yeah.
Then we just go through a few ground rules. These are just things that I've used from my experience. You know, you can use the same, you can modify, but you talk about, for example, we will understand from the other person's perspective, right? That's one of the commitments you make. Another commitment that you make, another commitment that you make is you say, I'm going to listen to the other person, and we're going to listen to one another. And the listening I'm not talking that I'm talking about is not the one where you're listening to the voice in your head, thinking of how to reply or how to interpret everything that I say. I'm talking about active listening. Active listening is basically, Andrew, I'm going to share with you 5 numbers, 3 digits each. And if you repeat them back to me in the exact same order, you're going to win $1 million. Now you're listening, right? You're really listening, the word for word, what I'm saying. You could probably, recite the whole thing back, right? That's the listening that we're talking about. No raising of voices and certainly no physical violence. Right? So you start creating this framework, and it's an agreement between you and the other person where you say, this is how we're going to have our conversation in order to get the best possible outcome. And every time someone goes a little off, you tell him, look, this is what we agreed to. Let's make sure we come back and remind each other that it's for this outcome, which is to bring us closer together.
Yeah.
So again, it's that first step that's the hardest, right? I mean, how many times have we played out a conversation in our head before we've even had it, and then it turns out completely different?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the first step of, I mean, both have to be on the same plateau before they kind of, and I just feel that rephrasing really helps because you actually rephrase and you hear what that person is saying.
Absolutely.
Across the table. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Andrew, one thing that's exceptionally important is not to point fingers. Andrew, you did this. No. Andrew, when you did this, this is how it made me feel.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You can't take away from my feeling. But if I say, Andrew, you did this, you can cross your hands and go, no. And you're going to get defensive. So again, we're not going to get anywhere. Yeah. Right? So it's all about our feelings, sharing how we feel.
Yeah.
I feel what I feel.
Yes. A safe space and a calm space is also required to kind of lead you into those conversations. And
there are so many things that you can do. It's like going into an important meeting as well. You don't want to go in and just rush into it one from the next to the next. You need to kind of balance yourself. You need to reposition your mind. You need to just get centered before you enter any important conversation. And like you said, you could do meditation. For those who are not into meditation, just breathe.
Yeah.
A great technique is box breathing, which is you breathe in for example, 4 counts. You hold your breath for 4 counts. You exhale for 4 counts. You hold your breath again for 4 counts. And you repeat that a few times. So just by doing simple breath work and really focusing on the breath, it helps to center between the mind and the heart. And you're going to be a lot more balanced when you're entering any sort of any sort of communication with loved ones and or important business meetings, right? Whichever kind of conversation you're just about to enter, it's so good to be centered as opposed to heavy on the mind or heavy on the heart, which may not always give you the best results.
Laughter. It also kind of gives you the endorphins, the positive endorphins that makes you feel.
And one thing that you taught me, you don't even have to make a sound when you laugh, right? I mean, so if you feel embarrassed, don't feel embarrassed, just do it in silence.
Do it in silence. And what about more focusing on, on the mind level and to be more aware, especially keep away your fears, your anxiousness, and, currently everybody's not in the right frame of mind. There's a lot of, there is constant anxiousness and fear of what's going to happen. Would love to hear your input on that.
Well, I believe most people have a fear of the unknown. And right now, it's just a very volatile world. And there's a lot of uncertainty. People have too many questions, right? And that includes myself. We all do. So great question, Andrew. And, there are 2 things that I can really share. The first one is, a concept that came to me, and hear me out when I say this because it sounds really strange. It's the concept of there's no need to worry. And when I first heard that, I had this strange, I look in my face, this person's crazy. But then I went one step further. I listened to what he had to say. He said, look, you have a situation, like, do you have a problem? No, then nothing to worry. That's the easy one, right? So let's forget that. Do you have a problem? Yes. Can you do something about it? No. Then why are you worrying when there's absolutely nothing that you can do that can impact the outcome? Right? I mean, if I'm going to constantly worry about COVID-19 and do nothing, just sit there. But if there's nothing I can do, there's nothing I can do. It is what it is. I have to accept it. Now, if there's something that happened and you can do something about it, aha, why don't you go ahead and put a plan of action in place to do something about it? So let's remove the worrying of the things we cannot control. And for the things we can control, to remove the worrying, let's put a plan of action in place so that we can get over our hurdle, whatever that may be. And when I heard this, I said, hey, okay, sounds very simple, but you know what? I've got very complex problems, complex challenges. And then to that, they answered, break it down into pieces, right? Each challenge that you may face, you can break it down into things that are in control and things which are not in control, right? Things you can do something about, things you cannot do something about.
Yeah.
Remove the things you can't do anything about, automatically your worrying goes down. And the things you can do something about, start putting a plan of action in place. So I know this sounds really simple, but by practicing and by keeping in your mind, you will already start reducing the worrying, which will lead to less anxiety, less stress. And as we know, stress causes all sorts of challenges in our body.
Yeah.
It doesn't help us function. So it's a vicious cycle. We're going down, right? Then we get more stressed because things aren't happening, and then more challenges in the body, less effective in the workplace, probably more snappy with people. We have the ability to control is how we start our day. To some extent, right? So hear me out. Again, I was very guilty, by the way. First thing in the morning, I wake up, my arm would shoot out, and I would grab my dear friend, the mobile phone.
Yes.
All right. And I would start looking through it. I mean, my eyes can barely open, I have to really stare at the screen, squinting. And every now and again, there'd be something there that I didn't like. A news report about something that happened in the world where it caused a lot of fatalities or illnesses. It could be a client saying, you know what, I don't want to go through with this contract, or I want to cancel this contract. Anything, a friend saying, I hate you. I mean, whatever it is. But imagine that's the first thing that I'm reading. And that's how I'm starting my day. And I don't know about you, Anju, but when I start at a low point, it's very difficult for me to get back up. And it takes me the whole day sometimes to get up. Now, guess what happens? I'm not as effective at work. I'm not as loving with my family. I'm not as productive. So imagine that's just that one decision that I made to check my phone in the morning resulted in so many incidents throughout the day where I was not as effective or as the person I want to be.
Yeah.
So how about we say to ourselves, let's start each day with a morning routine, something to energize ourselves and to put us in a great positive is movement. Just move. Move for 10, 15 minutes. Now, I do the sun salutation, which is yoga, but you can walk, you can do star jumps, you can run, you can do push-ups, do whatever you want, just move. My breath work for another 15 minutes. Now, there's different forms of breath work, there's pranayama, but just take those deep breaths where you're really focusing on breathing from the belly rather than the chest. And really get that oxygen in, right? We want to feed our cells with oxygen to come alive. Yeah. That's second stage. The third stage is, in my case, it's meditation. I've had people who've come up to me and said, oh, I tried it, but it didn't work. And I said, how much did you try? They said, once. I said, wow. When you were a baby and you were crawling and you tried to walk and you fell, Did you say, you know what, this hurts my bum. I'm just gonna crawl for the rest of my life. No, you fell again and again and again, and you got better and you got more confident. And now you're walking, you're running, you're jumping, you're skipping, you're doing all sorts of things. So you need to do a bit of practice. And there's so many different types of meditation. Try different forms. Perhaps start with a guided meditation. Meditation being done, you know, simple as what we spoke about earlier. It's about not being too heavy on the mind or the heart. It's really coming and being centered. I go into the fourth stage, which is journaling. And in my journaling, I cover a few things, which is gratitude. You know, there's so many things that might be going wrong, but guess what? There are many more things that are going right. Then I talk about things that I'm excited about. You know, today I was excited to talk to you, Anju. You know, I was excited about my family time that I'm going to have today. I was excited to sit outside in nature and listen to the sounds of birds. The next thing that I do in my journaling is a positive affirmation. So many that are out there. And then I end it with forgiveness. You know, if I've hurt anyone intentionally or unintentionally, I ask for forgiveness. And if anyone has hurt me intentionally or unintentionally, I forgive them. I just want to cleanse myself. And then I finish with a statement which my children shared with me, and it's from a cartoon, SpongeBob SquarePants, and I write down, "Today is going to be the best day ever."
Wow.
So that's how I finish my morning routine. Now you can imagine, I'm just in a great place right now. Now, if I pick up my phone and I read something that I don't like, I'm here on the energy scale. You can knock me down, but I'm still up. So you have control over how you can start your day. Do you want to risk how you start your day by picking up your phone or the newspaper? Or do you want to say, you know what, I'm going to take control of this. I'm going to decide how I start my day. And I want to start on a high with maximum energy for high impact.
Very practical tips. So for me, my today's takeaways are the mobile phone and being mindful about the pause. Because I talk about you. And guys, please follow Sahil K Mehta on Instagram, on YouTube. And he's got all these videos, the webinars. I even watched 1 or 2 webinars with Breaking Bread, was that?
Yep, Breaking Bread, correct.
Yeah, and that was interesting also for me. There was a lot of good takeaways from there. So you have a great day, and we'll see you back in Dubai.
Yeah? Absolutely, look forward to it, Anju.
Yeah, thank you for your time, and hello to your family.